join our meeting because we're going to get underway. It happens to be something important tonight that we're going to get through, and of course our board meeting. So if we can all join the board meeting, please. I'm going to call our meeting to order. It's 7:01, and welcome to the regular board meeting for Sunrise Education Center. My name is Paul Mangan. I'm the board chair. I'll call our meeting to order. We are going to have O Canada by Centennial School. Please stand if you can do so. Thank you for that. We have a treaty acknowledgement. I'm going to ask Trustee Rowan to please read out a treaty acknowledgement.
We acknowledge the traditional land upon which Sunrise School Division resides as Treaty 1 territory. We honor our partnerships with Canada's original peoples and respect the gifts of Indigenous history, culture, and language. We commit to moving forward in partnership with our communities in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation.
Thank you, Melissa. Just so that people that are in the room and as well people that are online, is that we have all our 9 trustees that are here, as well as our senior administration and our board support. And in the audience, we have Serena Kloss, the president of the Sunrise Teachers Association, and we also have George Waldner here making a presentation on behalf of Springwell Colony. So welcome, certainly, everyone here. We're going to have the adoption of the agenda, so be it resolved that the board approve the agenda. I need to move into seconder. Moved by Trustee Rowan, seconded by Trustee Rowland. Any questions to it? Hearing none, we'll vote. Past 9-0, thank you for that. Chair's comments or reminders that if you have questions and you're online, please send all your questions to jody.thiessen@sunrisesd.ca. Name and address of the sender, please include in the email. We're here to share a story. Trustees, anyone who wants to share a story? Trustee Nicol.
6 Whitemouth students went to the provincial 4-H speech finals in Brandon this weekend. And Bethany Devereaux, which is a grade 1 student, got first place in the province. So the other ones did not place, but they did a very good job from what I understand. And the Whitemouth PAC served lunch to the staff on Monday, that was yesterday, in appreciation of their excellent work. The bus drivers received their appreciation gift this morning. There was no school on Monday, so they couldn't give it to the bus drivers.
Thanks, Trustee Nicol. Anyone else? Trustee Rowan.
I've got a few stories to share here. OBE, so Oakbank Elementary, will have their kindergarten information night tomorrow evening. SMS Springfield Middle School is having their PAC meeting tomorrow evening as well. Also, for the first time in at least 3 years, a babysitting course was held at a Cold school during the in-service this week. The course was only offered to students at EDS, and all of the students in attendance were very engaged.
Thanks, Trustee Rowan. Anyone else? Trustee Boyton?
Last meeting, I had shared that a family donated money to the outdoor classroom structures at Enola School. So just an update to the project. Mrs. Dent and Mr. Stanley presented to the Springfield Kinsmen, and the Kinsmen have committed to provide Enola School $6,400 towards the building costs. So thank you so much. Just kudos to them. Kinsmen does such great work for our communities, and this is just another example of their generosity and community commitments.
Thank you. So now we know which trustees we're going to send out to go ahead and raise money for us. Thank you very much, Trustee Dent. Nice work. Anyone else? Trustee Harris?
Last Thursday, Sunrise School Division held a job fair in this building. I'd like to give kudos to all of our staff who took time out that morning and evening to stay here to do interviewing. I think it went very well. And I think I can say that any person who would like to become a part of our great school division is certainly asked to contact our division offices at any time. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Anyone else? Kathy?
Just want to say congratulations to Lactabani Senior School for putting their name in, and who will be hosting the volleyball provincials next year in December. So they will be hosting a volleyball provincial at their school. We'll keep you posted on how that goes.
Last week I had the opportunity to attend Art Speak, not last week, 2 weeks ago, and there was a presentation of our senior students from our, I think, 5 of our school divisions, 5 of our high schools. I think there were roughly 15 students that were there. They presented Thursday night up in Camp Cedarwood, which weather was, beforehand was a little tricky, but by the end it was great. If you haven't got a chance to see some of the talent that we have in the school division, that's the time to go. Awesome to go ahead and do that. Division Principal Reed was there as well, representing the school division, and I can tell you that Art Speak, it was great to see that it's back. Students are again at Art Speak this week, so this Thursday, if you get a chance to get out to Art Speak, get out to Camp Cedarwood. I think there's 21 students from the 5 high schools that are there this week. And again, you want to see some talent that our kids have and what Art Speak brings out with them. It's pretty impressive. So if you get a chance, I'd encourage you to get out to Art Speak and go ahead and see that. High School Hockey Awards, the boys banquet. We had students from, a student from Lactabani won an award. Two students from Springfield Collegiate won awards, and there was a student from Powerview that won an award. So kudos to the 3 schools for some individual awards that those students won. It was very impressive. There was kind of interesting when you get boys together. They're all dressed up in shirts and ties, and probably there were about 450 boys that were there with their school chaperones and coaches. Pretty impressive. So it was again, it's certainly showing the work that our coaches and volunteers are doing, certainly in high school hockey. So kudos to them. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to you, Kath, as we have Principal Waldner here.
I very rarely need to do any speaking for George Waldner, so other than welcome, George, the floor is yours. I'll be flipping your screens. I'll thank you at the end.
Okay, most of you know who I am. I'm George Waldner. I'm the teaching principal at Brightstone Colony, Springwell School. I have been since 1997, so I'm kind of like a permanent fixture around here. Next slide, please. I don't know how many of you have been to our colony, how many of you haven't. I think most of you have, but I believe just by driving into our colony you can see that it's a well-planned place, and a well-planned place and a coordinated place needs educated people. Our colony made a goal established a goal in 1999 that every child, male and female, not just male and female, will graduate with a regular Manitoba High School diploma. No exceptions are given whatsoever. So dropout is not an option. We had 2 dropouts, and both of those dropouts were young guys who left and quickly found out that they needed at least a grade 12 and got their GED out in Calgary and are now back on the colony. So all our students do graduate. There is no option. The colony's commitment to education has been tremendous, including the building of a brand new facility in 1998. It's modern, it's well planned, and it's conducive to good educational policies. The purchase of the arts teaching time and extra EA time for many years. So I always think there's a stigmatism attached or a misconception that most colonies don't really want their kids educated in certain fields. And maybe that is the case in some colonies, but not in ours. Volunteer support provided by the colony. So it's 2 ladies who come in and catalog our books. Everything is barcoded, cataloged, and organized properly. Out-of-school opportunities for physical activity, school interaction, and the arts. We have a big, huge hockey rink. We have our own Zamboni. And we do play colony against colony at times. Swimming lessons are a must at our colony because we do have boats and pontoons that families can sign out for the weekend, and nobody is allowed on those boats or pontoons without at least somebody who has a level 9 swimming. Our students need, and that's a colony rule, need to continue with their swimming lessons till grade 9. After grade 9, they have an option of continuing to higher levels, and we now have 2 students who have maxed out and actually will probably be sent to Selkirk starting this summer or in the winter for their life-saving, I'm not sure what it's called. The Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra has come to our colony. Obviously, we cannot take everybody out of the colony to the symphony, so we brought the symphony to the colony, and that's also good for the elderly. Our students have had the upper right hand picture for my right hand. That's our students performing together with the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra this past Christmas. And then colonies do have drama and theater clubs. And this one that is being put on now, the hiding place, is by a drama and theater colony club in Hanover School Division. And if any of you want to go and spend $20 on a fabulous production, everything goes to Haiti, to an orphanage in Haiti, all the proceeds. I'm not exactly sure when the dates are, but I know our students and most of our colony will be going to this. And our colony continuously supports extra EA time, and they have for, I'm not exactly sure how many years, because EA time is essential for speech and language development. And 21, 22, it was $5,800, and the last year it was $6,000. Our school is comprised of a K-4. There's Lisa Rand is the full-time teacher, and Jessica Hens is the EA. There's 2 kindergartens, 3 grade 1s, 2 grade 2s, 2 grade 3s, and 3 grade 4s, and there are 5 students in speech and language. Then there's my classroom. 3 grade 5s, 2 grade 6, 2 grade 7, 2 grade 8, 2 students in speech and language. And then our high school students, once they reach grade 9, are moved into the HBNI stream, which is the Hutterian Brethren Interactive Television System. And it's courses that are taught throughout Manitoba and beamed into the other schools via an interactive TV system. It's not the best option, but it's the only option for our small numbers. The colony does not expect the school division to provide a high school teacher for each of the subject areas. These students do get together about once a month where they do labs, do presentations to their peers, and so on and so forth. Our literacy goals, we kind of shifted them on Kathy. At the beginning of the year, it was numeracy first, but then we kind of quickly figured out that in order for our students to become good problem solvers or become good at problem solving, there was one essential piece missing, and that essential piece was the comprehension, the inferencing, and understanding what the problem is asking for. So we shifted our goals for literacy first, numeracy second. So that's why there was a bit of a shift there. If you look at the data closely and, oops, sorry. This is the Sunrise School Division Teaching to Diversity, Jennifer Cates reading assessments. I think all of Sunrise uses the same. And it's predicting, summarizing, comprehension, questioning, inferencing, reflecting, and oral reading fluency. This is all curricular. So that's why we're testing them on, or assessing them on all of those strains. Next, please. For me? I know. Darn it. Too bad this is recording. No, just joking. Anyway, if you look at our fall assessments, this is my classroom. To my left, the bright yellow, you will see that quite a few students didn't even reach the passing mark. And then when we did the assessments after all of our work with doing comprehension strategies, inferencing strategies, working one-on-one with the students as much as possible across all grade levels and across all curricular areas, not just during ELA time, but in math, in social studies, in science, you see a significant improvement in our assessments at the last reporting period. Quite impressive, I think. Very proud of the students and of ourselves. The early years, this is also, I think, very impressive because in November, if you look at the column to the left, I should have color-coded it actually, the grade 4s were at a 3.5 and then they all move up at least to have a grade, if not more. If you look at the third grade 4 student, 5.3, and then we just stopped assessing at grade 6. And that's not just reading, that's understanding what you're reading, that's comprehension, and we have to understand that these students come to us 98% of the time, they do not know the alphabet, they do not know any English, and then if you look at our kindergarten students at the bottom there, the last one, for a lack of a better term, she was basically an empty slate when it came to the English language. She had no clue, no concept of letter recognition, nothing. Now she's pretty much doing all of the sounds, and if she'll go to P, she'll say Paul, Peter, Pen. So she knows the sound and she can associate the sound with words as well. Any questions? Okay. We rely heavily on technology because of our mixed grades. I teach grade 5 to 8 in the same classroom, and it's impossible for me to be spending one-on-one time with all of the grades at the same time, so we flip-flop. All of our students from grades 5K to 8, well, not the K, it's grade 1s to 8, they do 15 minutes of mathematics every day. And whatever mathematics is very customizable to the student needs. So the way I do it in my classroom is if I have a group of students, the grade 5s working on mathematics, I'll have my grade 6s working with me one-on-one, or group teaching, or pulling them out, or reassessing, whatever the case may be. And if you look at the graph, it shows there was a 19.43%. Now this is not, in my case, in the grade 5 to 8, the lower bar graph. This is based on MRLC guidance, what do we call it, Kathy? Sequencing and pacing guides and problem solving. The upper one, K to 4, or grades 1 to 4, if she's doing a unit on fractions or decimals or whatever the case may be, then she teaches it kind of through mathematics or gives them reviews through mathematics. You only open up the outcomes you want students to work on. You won't open up the whole gamut and have them go nuts. That just won't work. Literacy strategies, everything from the sounds when they come in to guided reading, practice. And I think for all of these strategies to work, there's one important component. We have to know or realize as teachers and as educators that one size doesn't fit all. And you have to get your parents on board. We are lucky in that way. We have a reading, I always like to say a reading colony. Our parents all read a lot. And I now have students of parents that graduated after I started teaching at the colony. So they know the importance and they know that we don't give up. I think that's the biggest component to some of the success we have in our students being above or at grade level in reading comprehension and in literacy. Yeah, sorry. The numeracy strategies, I don't think I need to read them all word for word. It's just good practices conducive to good teaching that we do on a normal basis. I think teachers just naturally do what needs to be done when it needs to be done. But I do have to say the last one, sorry Kathy, I wanted to include you. The 6-week superintendent visits and going over our goals and keeping us on track, I cannot stress enough how valuable that has been. Sometimes it is a pain in the you know what. When I forget that Kathy's coming and I get a call, I'm at your door, can you come let me in? Well, but it's valuable. It's really good. Our budget is basically the small schools and the EAL. The small schools is used for normal day-to-day running of the school, and all of our EAL goes to EA funding. And our SBDM, which is the side-based decision-making, this year was used to add 3 new iPads to the early years classroom. Last year we used it to offset some of the EA costs to eliminate costs to the colony. Questions. I need to read this because there is a lot of rumors out there. I don't know if they're rumors, and quite a few colonies in some divisions have gone private. I think there's 12 in total in the last couple of years who have just left the division overnight. This has never been our colony's intention. It is our colony's intentions to work closely with Sunrise School Division to advocate and make decisions based on best practices and the educational needs of our students and community. Not all of our students stay on the colony, and we do not want to send them off out into the world, quote unquote, with less than a grade 12. We want them to be good, contributing members of society on or off the colony, whatever they choose. We don't want them to leave, but I have a daughter who left and she's doing well, so not everybody stays. And I'm done. Do you have any questions?
Thanks very much, George. Around, questions for George? Trustee Nickel?
According to the chart, you only have one EA. Do you have more than one EA?
We have one EA, partially funded by the colony and partially funded through our EAL budget from the school and partially funded through student services. I don't know the exact numbers of where it's all coming from, but the colony has put in between $7,000 to $5,800 to $7,000 in, I'm not sure how long that has been going on, 6 years? But a full-time EA is essential. Like, there's not enough time in the day for one classroom teacher to be teaching all those skills to the students they need to be able to thrive in the English language. Did I answer your question, though? Did I answer your question?
Well, yeah. Well, you had more than one EA, but you only...
Oh, sorry, just one, yeah.
Anyone else? Trustee Boyton?
I don't have a question, just a couple comments. First of all, that's a pretty aggressive goal that the colony has taken about having all your students educated, and I congratulate you for that, because that is so important, and a lot of colonies don't do that now. So 100% attendance, and everybody has to have that diploma. That's wonderful. And thanks for sharing that about, you know, Kathy coming to your colony regularly and the importance of that for you, because we're going to be looking for a superintendent. And I guess that's probably one of the things that I'm writing down, that, I mean, as much as you say it can be a pain, obviously it's got its benefits. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
George, how much money did Kathy give you to go ahead and say that and make that be good?
She promised she'd buy me a coffee, but she hasn't. No, she did. Just a joke.
Anyone else, questions? So I have a question for you, George. Your data of where kids have gone from, I'm not sure what slide it's on, but your data is impressive. Why? Why is your data impressive? And why are the kids doing that well?
It's impressive because, to me, it's impressive because it shows a lot of growth, and it just doesn't show growth in their oral reading skills. Anybody can read, basically, but do you understand what you're reading? And that's, we're spending so much time and focus on that, and the reason, like I said before, it's not just one component of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's the parents, it's the community, it's the atmosphere that the community has created, I think, is a big part, and it's also what we're doing in the early years classroom is so very important. The one-on-one with the EA, like our kindergarten students spend the whole morning, the first part of the morning alone with the EA, doing sounds, doing words, doing whatever it takes to get them to read.
Yeah, you did. I'm just trying to get from you the why, and you certainly did some sharing, Kath.
I'd like to add a little piece to that. One of the pieces that maybe you don't see, because you're right invested in the work that happens in the school, is that collaborative and reflective time that you guys spend as a group of teachers, or with a program leader there, or with me there. You're always trying to turn over the rock and look at what's the next best thing. We had a PD day where the staff were entirely together, you know, tuned into the Jan Richardson work, and then discussing what it is that you were hearing and what might work and how does that you know, play out for our building. So when you talk about, well, it's just good teaching, that good teaching is because we work together and talk with each other about what's working and what's not.
For sure, and it's not just the good teaching. I should have mentioned that everything that was discussed Monday morning when we were online watching this lady from the U.S. talking about her program, how important it is for the students to hear the sounds and how important it is for them to be able to associate A with apple or with any or whatever the case may be. It's a whole gamut of mixed stuff that makes it work. It's not just one program that'll do it. One program does not fit all. You have to cater to the child. You have to differentiate. on the go quickly.
So George, I've given every school principal an opportunity. You've got now all 9 trustees listening to you. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. What does Springwell Colony need?
Full-time EA. Seriously. I cannot stress how important it is for us to have a full-time EA. And it's a bit of a sore spot on the part of our colony because they have put in a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of energy to building a facility that's something to be proud of, I think. And then they haven't said much about having to pay for extra EA time, but it would be nice if we won't have to. So full-time EA would be awesome.
Thanks, George. Anyone else before he leaves? Trustee Harris?
I'd just like to thank you so much for the enthusiasm and pride you've shown here tonight for your school, and when we visited your colony. You welcomed us with open arms, and again tonight, it's just been great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anytime you want to visit, please call ahead of time. Because sometimes it's a bit chaotic. Sometimes we have parents walking through. Sometimes we have parents in the library. And I like to be prepared, which I wasn't that day. But it was still good.
So thanks very much, George, certainly on behalf of the trustees. I know Kathy's purse is a little bit lighter because of all the money that she paid you about saying the good things. But no, seriously, George, thanks for coming and sharing with us. We appreciate it. We appreciate you taking the time and giving us, showing us around your school the last time that we had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago. It's always great for some of our new trustees to get an idea as to what's going on in the different schools across, and certainly had a great opportunity to see your school and how you and your teachers were working with your kids. So thanks very much for going ahead and doing that.
Thank you for your time, and I hope you have an awesome evening. I know I will.
Well, we're expecting you to stay because you know what, you need to go back and report to the rest of the principals all this wonderful meeting and stuff. No, I'm just kidding you, George. Thanks very much. We appreciate you. Okay. 5.1 is minutes from April the 4th, so be it resolved the board adopt our April the 4th board meeting minutes. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by trustee Dent, seconded by trustee Nickel. Any questions to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll vote. Past 9-0, thank you. 6.0 is our superintendent's report. Kath?
So a couple of pieces that I wanted to share, and we started off with our Sunrise Learning Framework, and we started off with the work that we do here at the division. And some of our framework is set up in the way where we say the school is the most important piece, and you hear about school goals, and then the supports we put in as a division are the next most important pieces. But some of what drives that is also the directions that come from the province. So I wanted to do a little highlight on one of the 3 things that the province of Manitoba has got out there and is part of their expectations for us. And it is this document called Mamatuwisawin, the Wonder We Are Born With. And so our school division has been deeply involved with it through the Manitoba Rural Learning Consortium. I wanted to share a little bit about the document here, and I'm going to try really hard not to make anybody nauseous. But the document will take you through a number of timelines, and it will take you through a number of resources. But I just wanted to really quickly highlight for you that when we talk about a really usable document, it's got 4 strategies called authentic involvement, putting students at the center, understanding worldviews, values and identities, traditions and contemporary lifestyles, and then inclusive and culturally safe environments. Each of those has 2 strands under it, but then it goes into telling us, well, hang on a second, what's everybody's stake in the game in this? And I'm going to try and make it a little bigger without losing the integrity, but it goes through and it says to you, in each of those 4 areas, what's the entry level for a student in each of those areas? What's the entry level? What's the role? What's the work of a teacher in each of those areas? What's the work of a school-based support team? We're not classroom teachers. What's the work of the division? What's the work of school leaders? And what's the work of the system? So each and every part of our system can kind of jump in at the place where they have a role and see what the work is that they should be doing. And it's a really well laid out document. We just recently got the support documents, so our schools are digging into the support documents. There's a really robust bibliography at the end that will take people through videos and through a ton of good things. So if you have a chance to have a quick look at it, please do. I wanted to thank the 3 schools that we toured this past week. So Oakbank Elementary, Springfield Middle, and École Beauséjour Early Years. That was our 3rd and final tour of the springtime, and we'll look at a next series of tours sometime in the fall. So thanks to those 3. As Paul mentioned, there are several high school students, I think 21 is what you said, who are off at Camp Cedarwood this week. Again, there's a 7 o'clock showcase on Thursday, the 20th. Kathy Cab will be leaving here. If anybody would like a ride up, we can certainly go check that out. This week, tomorrow, École Dugald School is again hosting a mental health day, and they've got a realm of speakers and activities and great things for students to engage in, for them to understand and own and be able to grab onto strategies that will work for their own mental health. This is not a one and done. This is absolutely equipping kids to understand what they might need and where to find those things that can help themselves. Great group of organizers who've done that. I wanted to also point out that next week, this week is Education Week, so we've had some people dropping off some treats for folks in schools. It's Bus Drivers Day on Thursday, so that's an exciting day. Schools will be doing some fun things for bus drivers. And next week we also have Administrative Professionals Day. And all of those folks that run the front offices and who support us are really a bit of a backbone for us. We can't get all the work done in schools without having that really strong team of people who are manning the office while we're out running around and doing some stuff. So just to make that note that that's a pretty important piece of our system. And unless there's questions, those are my highlights for this week.
Questions for Kath? Catherine, as we as a division, do we do anything for these days? Whether it's bus drivers or our secretaries or whatever, and I mean division, whether it's on behalf of trustees or on behalf of senior admin or whatever, do we do anything like that?
Yes, I don't want to ruin some of the things that are coming up for some of our drivers, in this week, but they've got a couple of surprises at their school sites and a couple of things that are happening at their divisional sites. In terms of our administrative assistants or our administrative professionals, again, I think each site does something for each of their groups of people. So we'll do something here for the folks that support us at the Education Center. Schools and staffs will do that for their staff, and every site will make sure that their folks are looked after.
Okay, so the question that I'm asking though is, so does the school division, so yes, so let's say I'm going to choose Hazel Ridge School. Hazel Ridge School may do something for their admin assistant that's there. I guess what I'm asking is, does the division, Kathy and the trustees, have we ever done something like that for for our staff when we have these kind of days?
We haven't done it sort of as a divisional standpoint. We've done sort of a Christmas thank you, and I think we've done an end of year thank you for everyone. When you did the wellness initiative, it was really important for you guys to do something that included everybody. Sometimes it's tough because the days come and we could miss one, and I think that's sometimes the fear, is we want to do something for one group and then get busy and forget about the next group. So we haven't traditionally.
Something for trustees to think about as we move forward. Is it something that we would ever be wanting to go ahead and do? And maybe some of you do individual things. It's something for us to think about at times, and we can continue to ponder that. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Kath. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Jody? Secretary Treasurer's report.
So I have a pretty long report here about what maintenance is doing. I'm not going to go in detail, so I figure everybody will have an opportunity to review it and read it. But yes, there's lots of capital capital things going on between tendering documents, opening tendering documents, planning for the next upcoming 5-year capital, what's on the in the queue for the next projects. For example, SCI is in the queue for approvals for one of their science labs. We have the detailed design completed. I want to jump right down into the other general matters. Normally this section of the report's pretty small. This time around, there was quite a few things to go over. One would be the news that I received from the RM of Springfield. The council had their meeting and they did not approve to contribute to the fence that we'd like to build at Dugald School. They have agreed to investigate and possibly fund crosswalk improvements at Dugald School instead. There is a sidewalk that needs to be extended, and they're looking at possibly putting crossing lights and at least looking at improving that area. But they are open to conversations with us, and they're looking forward to meeting with us on May 8th. So the feedback that they did let me know is they do recognize the developer did provide additional land to Dugald School, as well as there was a financial contribution that ended up in our land dedication reserve. So there were contributions to that area. I let them know, though, that because it ended up in a reserve, we can't go ahead and purchase fencing to build this fence. So I left it at that, and I anticipate that we can discuss with them more for May 8th on what we'd like to see at that site. Other things that took place, I do have, as noted, May 8th, tentatively booked right now for 10:30 in the morning to meet with them. As per other conversations about meeting with other communities or municipalities due to growth in the communities, the town of Beausejour we will be working with, and as well as the RM of Broken Head. So I have noted May 23rd is tentatively scheduled with the RM of Broken Head at 5 o'clock. We're just confirming that those dates, and we'll look at everybody's calendar to see if that works. They have a meeting later that night, so we would be meeting with the RM of Broken Head at the RM of Broken Head office at 5 o'clock on the 23rd. We'll send out a meeting invite to make sure that everybody could attend or whoever could. But it will be, again, about landmark planning and the needs for our schools. For Gillis, Gillis School would be one of them. From there, just wanted to bring the board's attention that we did receive some grants as well, or efficiency funding. Enola School will be doing lighting upgrades at the school, and we received Manitoba efficiency funding for about $10,000, as well as Gillis School will be doing some upgrades there, and also receive funding for $3,000. And if anybody has other questions.
Any questions for Jody? Trustee Boyton?
I'm just wondering if you could explain to the people that are listening why you went to the RM in the first place to ask them for funding for that fence?
Yeah, so back when Dugald, I guess back last summer, Holland Street was extended to a new development. Normally Holland Street was a street, and then it turned into kind of like a grass and gravel, more of a grass dirt road. There is new development there from the developer, which the RM of Springfield extended Holland Street. They also added water improvement and drainage in that area. And now with a busy street, Holland, that runs right adjacent to our playgrounds, and I believe there's a soccer field in that area. Our students go outside and use it as a recreational area. The idea of a fence would secure to ensure that our students are safe, as well as keeping our I guess the equipment and things like that off the road as well. So more of a safety feature than anything else.
Anyone else questions? Jody, I have a question. So the developer, when we built the add-on to the school, or the school in the first place, gave us extra land. Are we using that land?
So by the looks of it, the land that was provided, I'd have to confirm, but I believe it's green space right now.
Okay, so it's green space for the school, and it's adjacent to the school, obviously. Okay, and you also said the developer then did it, or the RM did give us dollars, and you said that we put it into something. Can you explain?
Yeah, so back, I believe it was 2015 when we were given the funding of about, it was $18,000 from the developer for the dedication of funds, and we put it into a reserve. The reserve is called land dedication or land reserve, and the scope of that reserve is to purchase land specifically in Dugald for, I believe it says land in Dugald for a school. I can bring those documents, but we did receive PSFB back in the day. The Public Schools Finance Branch was the group that we would have to go to receive the okay to establish a reserve, and they did say yes, you can create that land reserve, and it specifically states for in the township of Dugald.
So, what size lot would $18,000 give us to buy? So I'm just trying to be practical. You know, we got $18,000. What would that give us to go ahead and purchase? I'm being facetious, I guess. Sorry, I shouldn't be like that. Yeah, sorry, that's my other voice I should be using. So I'm not asking you to answer that. But okay, so they gave us $18,000 and we put it into a land dedication. Thanks, Jody. Any other questions for Jody? Thank you. Trustee Rowan?
Do you have an estimated cost of building that fence?
We received a quote about in the fall time, so after consideration of what likelihood the cost has gone up, it's about $25,000.
Anyone else? Okay. Thanks, Jody. Appreciate it. We'll keep going. Sorry, I skipped over 6.2 draft reporting schedule. You have that for information. And again, if we want to add or change anything to it, a reminder that's on us anytime that we can go ahead and change that. Any comments on the draft reporting schedule or anything we want to do with it? Okay. So let's go on to 8.0, so 8.1 strategic plan. We do have a meeting coming up, and the meeting is the 27th on 6 to 8, so that's some of the work that we're going to do. Reminder, we talked about the 3 pillars or the 3 streams as to where we are. We're continuing and staying with those 3 streams. And those 3 streams are, Kathy? Yeah, it's on the report, but those 3 streams with a strategic plan, just a reminder, just so that people are listening. One of them talks about educational, literacy and numeracy. It's social emotional that we're talking about, certainly mental health and well-being, and relationship, community, and cultural engagement. Just a reminder that those are the streams that we're continuing on with. 8.2 is our school calendar. Turn it over to you, Kath.
Last meeting I brought a draft calendar, and then we got the River East Transcona School Division calendar, so we try to align with River East Transcona and Lord Selkirk. The calendar we got as a draft is almost exactly the same. The only change that we would have made would have been in November. We had a Monday the 20th, and the 24th gives us another common day with River East Transcona, so we shifted a Monday to a Friday. That's a change that allows us to have parent-teacher. It meets a request that schools had about having a parent-teacher day here as well. It's tough to try to meet all of the requests, so it is important to try and look at that and say we do filter every possible scenario here, but this is the change that is different from last time to this time. Everything else has remained the same.
Questions on the calendar with anybody? Put it back up. Go ahead, Trustee Boyton. So just disclosure, Kath, we had a request from Catherine Strassel at Lac du Bonny Senior. As Lac du Bonny Senior is hosting principals is hosting provincials. I don't know if Russ, you wanted to add anything to that, but she certainly requested is that could we have a day as they host provincials to go ahead and do this? Want to comment on it, Kath?
Sure. So oftentimes we'll have all sorts of schools that will try to, this is the day right here where the provincials would start on the 1st of December. It's a tough one because, again, we're trying to line up with other school divisions in terms of the busing. So sometimes you look at that and think, oh, it'll just be easy to flip that over here. We have to then find another even day so the kindergarten kids don't mess up on their even odd days. And so it may seem really easy just to take this day and put it over here, but then it would impact the rest of the calendar and probably mess up the rest of our River East and Lord Selkirk days. So as much as we'd like to, it's really tough. If we had volleyball provincials and basketball and badminton, we can't align our PD days with all of those provincials, even though we'd like to.
Thanks, Kath. Oh, go ahead, Melissa. Trustee Rowan.
I'm just going to ask for Kathy to give some clarification for the people that are going to listen to this or that are going to look at the calendar and ask the question about Election Day. Because when we had ours, the schools weren't closed. So I'm sure the question will come up, so it'd be great if you could address that.
So there's now legislation that if there is a fixed date election, that schools must be closed on a fixed date election. If it's a not fixed date election and the government just calls an election and it's not, they have to, schools can remain open. But if it is a fixed date election, which this will be, then all the schools in the province are to be closed, and that is new legislation that's come out. Great question.
Trustee Reed, did you have a question? Okay. Trustee Rowland?
Just one more question about the election. Isn't there still a chance it could call an earlier election? And so we would continue to have that day off and be open on the surprise date?
So I feel like all of the indicators are that we're now closing in on, and schools have to have their calendars into Manitoba Education by a certain date. If we needed to come back, before the end of June, the province would have to give us an extension and we could come back and we could flip that date. But the window of when they can call that is tightening. They will not call an election during the summer because they will have a very low, well, maybe I shouldn't say they won't call an election. I'm not in charge of that. There's a lot of things I do. That's not one of them. It's highly unlikely that they would call an election during the summer in Manitoba because there's not a lot of people around and not a lot of people coming out to vote.
All right, so I'm going to call. So be it resolved that the board approve the 23-24 school calendar with the last day of classes before Christmas break would be Friday, December 22nd. And the first day of classes after Christmas break would be Monday, January the 8th. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Nichols, seconded by Trustee Smith. Any further comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. And it passed 9-0. Thank you. So the ward boundary review, we have a motion that's on the. We have a motion here. I have asked Don to give us a little bit of his insight, certainly to that, and then we'll go to the motion. So Don, floor is yours.
All right, we've done a little bit of work on boundary review in the last board when we had the last board. There's nothing wrong with the motion, but I think the motion is a little bit too broad. I think we have to decide what we're going to do with the boundary review. Are we just going to look at to try to equalize the number of people in each ward, or are we trying to look at Oak Bank and divide that Oak Bank into 2 wards? Because right now a trustee in Oak Bank has to look after 5,000 ratepayers, whereas somebody like Anola, myself, we only look after 2,000. So there's an option to try to see whether we can split that or we can leave it the way it is, and then all we have to do is look at, and we have done the mathematics of already, that there's only one word that we really have to adjust, and that's Ward 1. Ward 1 is the only one that doesn't fall within the parameters. Is if you look to see what it says you take the number and number of ratepayers and then divide by 9, and then that's what it should be in each ward within plus or minus of 25%, and what Ward 1 is only one that is the outlier. So if we do all this, if we're going to ask Cassie to do all this, what gets the cost, I think we should let her know whether we want her to do just the Ward 1 or do we want to look at all the wards. So that's what I think we're looking at.
Thanks, Don, for that. Thanks, Don, for that information as to where it is. When we started talking about this at agenda planning, we wanted to get an understanding of what the scope was, what the cost was, certainly about it, and what the potential manpower, or is it something that we would go outside to it? So I don't think that we knew enough about it, and so really what it was is that if we're ever going to go ahead and direct someone to do something, then we need to put it into a motion as to what it is. So I hear what you're saying, Don, certainly about it. So the motion does talk about cost, time, probably what we don't have in there is scope, and you were talking about scope. So maybe if we add the word scope in there, be it resolved that the board direct the superintendent or designate, and again, to bring a report back on May the 16th meeting indicating the scope, the cost of the ward boundary review would incur, the amount of time that the ward boundary review would take, and possible outside entities that could complete the ward boundary review for Sunrise School Division. So it's about for someone to come back and give us information then to decide whether we want to go and do that. Go ahead, Trustee Nicol.
If we decide we're not going to do it according to the Public School Act, if we get a number of people that don't like our decision, then it's going to go to the Board of Reference, which means we will no longer have a decision to make, and our decision will be made out of our hands, and that means they'll just say, this is what's going to happen, you've got to be satisfied with that. So that's one of the dangers by not doing anything, because then we let somebody else decide for us what the boundary is going to be.
So that's great information, Don, for us, but I do think that we still want to get some information back from Kathy, as that we don't have, for us to decide, oh yes, go ahead and do it. Well, what is it costing us? What's time, et cetera, those kind of things. So let's find that out. So I think that we've got a pretty good, the only thing that I would add, Stacy, is let's add scope to it. So be it resolved that the board direct the superintendent or designate to bring a report back to the May 16th meeting indicating the scope, the cost that the ward boundary review would incur, the amount of time that a ward boundary review would take, and possible outside entities that could complete the work of the ward boundary review for Sunrise School Division. So I need a mover and a seconder for that. Oh, Trustee Nicol, you're moving that? Okay, you're moving that, thank you. A seconder? Trustee Boyton, thanks. Any other comment about this from anyone? We can go ahead and vote on this, Stace. Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. And thanks, it passed 9-0. The 5-year capital plan report. This is you, Jody.
Every year at this time we bring forward a 5-year capital plan. What we proposed this year, I provided a bit of a summary, but I wanted to highlight some things to the board. We tried to keep it a status quo, kind of taking a look at last year's, keeping what's on there, and then adding to it. There's a few things that came off because they were completed and have been accepted by the province. Some of these projects I should outline that we may put them on identifying that it should be done within the next 5 years, but it may take 5 to 7 years for the province, or they may accept it right away and they'll proceed with it. So we did change some of the rankings due to some considerations, but we also added, and I wanted to highlight the new additions to the report. We added Ecole PowerView Science Lab. One was completed just this year. We're going to request the additional science lab to be completed, as well as Edward Schreier School. We want to update the another science lab there. as well as SCI. We have one science lab that is at the point of design, detailed design is complete, and they should be tendering shortly to see, and hopefully construction, it's just subject to the province's decision. What is on this list is the other science lab in the school, so we're looking at redoing that one. I should identify also in this report, we're keeping it, or the list, we're keeping it status quo at this time to reflect the Oakbank Bus Garage. We would like to convert that into a vocational facility. However, I should outline the province could come back to us and say the building is not feasible. We don't think it's going to be an ideal opportunity to convert that into a vocational facility. What Derek and myself have discussed for quite some time to discuss about what we should be proposing. We know there is a vocational facility we'd like to see, and we'd also like to see at least a French immersion high school one day in the future. It's not identified on a 5-year capital plan. We have internal documents between Derek and myself where we're the maintenance manager and the secretary treasurer, almost like beyond a 5-year capital plan. Should there be increased enrollment? Should there be changes of demand of our facilities? We have kind of a preliminary 10-year plan. That's where we've earmarked a potential vocational school or French immersion school that there may be needs. So at this time, what we're presenting, or what I'm presenting, is a status quo 5-year capital with the Oakbank Bus Garage listed on there. But again, to hear feedback from the board even, if we should proceed just identifying that a vocational facility, not a conversion, should be considered. Right now we've kept it the same as last year and prior years, but it wasn't much of a discussion in looking back in years past with the board. So.
Thanks, Jody. Comments? Trustee Nichol?
Do you put portables on the 5-year plan, or is that on a different?
Yeah, that's a good question, but it is different. There's a different intake process, and I should identify that we don't put portables on here because we submit it usually in January. I should also note that we didn't put any additions to the schools. So Dougald School, Beausejour Early Years, and Oakbank Elementary are 3 schools that we're putting portables on, and even SMS, we've submitted the request. Part of the conversation around should we put an addition or put it in our 5-year capital plan in addition to one of those schools, the numbers are just not there yet. Usually when we start seeing portable numbers of 3, 4, even 6 portable classrooms on a school, that's when we've been able to convince the province that there is a need for that addition. Right now, we are in kind of like preliminary numbers. We don't have a concrete evidence to prove that we do need that addition. We have our landmark planning, but at the same time, the landmark planning document identifies if we have moderate growth. If we have slow growth, we don't need an addition. But if we have moderate to high growth, that's when the addition may be required. So at this time, the numbers aren't showing it, but we do have on our internal document for beyond the 5 years, an addition identified in that area, in those 3 schools.
Anyone else? Comments? Trustee Rowan?
With the Oakbank Bus Garage, how would that affect the current adult education program that's in that building?
So right now, our alternative program is out the back and is using that facility, and it's a good facility for exactly that program. They have been off-site. We've rented and leased space for them in different places and spaces. I also, if I'm being honest, can tell you that the last time we had the province out to look at the bus garage, they said this is not a facility that you would convert into a vocational site. you would need to be doing something totally different because the best you could do would be to raise it down and build something, and it's not big enough. I think we want to recheck that with the province because that was done a while back, and I think that that's exactly what we'll hear, and then we need to come up with a plan for where that might need to be, and that might be a new school ask, or that might be some of the land that we need to dedicate in our developments. But we didn't want to dishonor that the history had that on there as a conversion. I don't see the province going, yep, that's a great space to convert.
Anyone else? We've been talking about converting that bus garage for quite some time, Melissa. And certainly haven't had a lot of traction from the province, you know, a number of years ago when we were there with it. Trustee Harris?
I don't think it's too early to put in a request for a new building. Make it number 11. Let them know that we're a growing area and that we anticipate a need for a new school.
I concur with Trustee Harris. As we're talking about the growth that we're seeing in Dugald and the growth that we're seeing in Oakbank, and maybe we don't have 5 portables yet, and we're not going to get a school built in a day, but maybe we're not going to get a new school built in 5 years, but with the growth that I think that we've seen, we're going to start to see something in, you know, the 4 to 8 year range, I think, from where we are. I don't think it's a bad idea for us to put it on the radar that we've got some growth in, you know, certainly, well, we just saw tonight the growth in, you know, that's coming out of the Dugald area. These are the areas where we're growing, and you know what, yeah, I concur. I think that it's probably a good idea for us to think about the fact is that put it on their radar that that we're probably looking down the road. And again, I don't think anybody knows right now, and it's good that we did that landmark planning, but it's not a bad idea for us to take a look at it. Anyone else can comment on it as well. Anyone else?
Do you want a motion to change that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I'm pretty good with something like that. So I think be it resolved that changing our number 11 on our 5-year capital plan to considerations for a new school in the Oakbank Dugald area. Go ahead.
So the motion hasn't come to the floor yet. Can we just have a general agreement that we want to modify number 11 to read something a little different and make the motion to be capital plan as presented and modified, or as modified?
We do need to direct them though. If we're going to change something, we do need to give them direction to change it. And direction usually comes from a motion. Go ahead, Trustee Rowland.
Like, can we not just add 12? Like, as a separate request to have a school? Like, it might be a result of their evaluation of number 11 that it's not feasible, and then, but I think we should still leave that. It's been on there for a long time. So just add a 12th one to have additional school. And
So how about
maybe
this?
That's French.
How about this? Be it resolved that we add to our 5-year capital plan in number 12 a new school for the Dugald Oakbank area due to our anticipated growth in those 2 communities. Anybody want to change that? Can we just use the word Springfield? Because that's the area where we're talking about. We're talking about, the Springfield area. Go ahead, Diane.
Do we even want to, is there a chance that like Beausejour people or like close on the cusp of Dougal Zone would be bussed in there? If we had a high school in Sunrise, like it would maybe be outside of the Springfield catchment is what I'm saying. People might, like, do we have to specify for Springfield growth because it might include other growth? Sunrise growth. Kathy's got a better word.
So I think when a school division gets a vocational high school, it is for all students in the division. But we're identifying that this is a need in this particular area because of growing population. You know, a place like Hanover, they have a vocational school in Steinbach, and it takes all catchment. Seine River is getting a new vocational facility, and it's for the entirety of Seine River. That answers that. I don't know if you're at the vocational or the French immersion or where we're at.
I'm not so sure that I'm at a vocational or a French immersion. What I'm at is, I want to put it on their radar, is that we probably need another building and how we configure any of our buildings to do that. But the growth certainly is in the Springfield area, and it's probably that we need some kind of a facility, and whether it's vocational, whether it is an elementary school, whether it's Ukrainian, whether it's French immersion, I'm not sure, but I do think that we need to get it on somebody's radar. So, how did we do, Stace? Come on. Is that close enough for you? Is that close enough? Is that close enough that if we motion it, let them do some wordsmithing, but we do want to give direction to them, is that we want to get it on the province radar, that we're looking at a new facility down the road in the Springfield area, or another facility and down the road in the Springfield area due to growth. What we know exactly it is, we don't, but we anticipate the growth there. Don and then Alicia.
The way you put it down, I don't think is that important right now because they're not going to look at it this year anyway. So we've got a whole year to do the next capital plan to really flesh it out and make sure that it's there. But at least we put it on the radar. If it's not exactly what we want, we can always change it next year.
I agree with you, Don. The only thing is, I want to reference it in 2026. I want somebody to be able to say, the board in 2023 put it on there saying that we were concerned about the growth. So I do want to get it on this year's request because we're going to reference it. We were talking about this back in 2023.
I'm not saying not putting it on. I'm just saying don't worry about whether it's exactly the way we want it. Because we just want to put it on there and we'll flesh it out the next year.
Alicia?
Be it resolved that the board approve the 5-year capital plan as amended to include an additional number 12, future school in the area, something like that.
In the Springfield area?
Yeah.
Okay, I can live with that. So,
Sure. Be it resolved that the board approve the 5-year capital plan as amended to and include number 12, and then the school bit that Paul was saying.
the addition of a school in the Springfield area. So I need a mover and a seconder for that motion. Moved by trustee Dent, seconded by trustee Smith. Comments to that? You have to turn your microphone off, Alicia, please. Can we vote by hand? It's on here? Okay, the wording will be updated. All right. So any other comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. Thank you. We passed 9-0. Kathy, Parent Council Status Report.
Yeah, that's there for information, and I think that some of the work that you've been doing attending and some of the work we've been doing talking about the importance of parents, you can see that there are now a bit more of a robust group of parents who are gathering and meeting. So we're doing some things that are pushing us in the right direction.
Comments, questions? Okay, 8.6, so Nello Altamore, did I say that right? I did not get a hold of Kathy. I was supposed to get a hold of Kathy to have some information certainly on here with regard to him coming and presenting to us. But just to clarify, the board is okay about him coming for the idea about coming and presenting for 10 minutes and about a 5-minute question period. That's what we would go ahead and do with. And then we would try to fit him on one of our board meetings that we have before June. That's what we talked about, right, Kath? Okay, so there's the update. I'll need to go ahead and get that information and get it on here, and then we'll get it out to everybody. Thank you. Royal Canadian Legion invitation. So this is from Lactabani, correct, Kath? So this is about us participating in the Legion, and then us pardon me? For laying a wreath. So again, just so that you know, we do lay wreaths, and it's our cost at Remembrance Days. We haven't done this in the past. Is this something that we want to go ahead and do? Trustee Nicol?
Did you say that we haven't done it in the past?
On Decoration Day.
We've done it in the past because I attended there.
So is it something that we want to go ahead and do? Trustee Smith? I don't mind going anyway. Okay. I'll get Trustee Smith, and I'll come to you, Russ.
I actually plan and attend the one in Beausejour every year anyway, so I'm going to be going to the one here. We didn't send an invite here, but that's the one I'm going to.
So I guess the question is there a cost to us? And if there's a cost to us, it's really then, if there's a cost, we just need to motion it, if that's the case. Russ, do you know anything about this, and can anyone share, or Don, maybe you can even share? Russ, the floor is yours. I'll go back to you, Alicia.
Decoration Day, I've never seen a charge for laying a wreath. It's normally just 4 wreaths. Remembrance Day is different. There's a $25 cost to lay the wreath. It's more of a fundraiser for the Veterans Gala that we put on every year. It doesn't say a cost on here. We don't charge anyone at Decoration Day here in Beausejour. That's more of a Remembrance Day thing as a fundraiser.
We don't need then a motion for us to go, if there's no cost to it. If Russ, we get Russ, since it's in Lactabani, Russ, you connect with this person, and then you go, certainly there would be no cost to us, then I don't think there's an issue for us, is there? From anyone? Okay, so Russ, then you've got the information here. We'll leave it up to you to contact them, and if you want to go ahead and do that, that's your call. Okay? Okay. Report cards, Kath, grade 1 to 8, term 2.
So this is now becoming a bit of a regular report that you guys would, I hope, be used to seeing a little bit. And I wanted to just quickly go through a quick piece of the PowerPoint with you to sort of just highlight what you should be looking for. There are no pieces of this report that cause alarm. There are no pieces that would say, we need to look into some of those pieces. But I wanted to just make sure that as we go through, we've picked topics on the in the different grade levels. And when you go through the PowerPoint and you look at the reporting, you will see over here on the right-hand side that we are talking now about all of the grade 1s here in the school division. And you can see that we're looking at term 1 and term 2. We come back in the fall, you'll have term 3 layered in here. And essentially what we're looking for is, you can see that the 2s, which used to be at 104, have now diminished and are at 81. The 3s have gone from 262 to 183. And you can see that the 64 has gone up to 81. And we want that shift happening on any given grade level where the 2s are becoming 3s and the 3s are becoming 4s, because that shows you the progression of a student going through, the different things that they need to. We will take a look at this, and you can whip through here and do it like the little old comic books from the past that some people might not be old enough to know what I'm talking about, but we can go through and do this on different grade levels, and that would be what you would see happening here. For the schools, the most important part is they get to click off on a box that is just their own. So each school has this data and can click on their own school and see this same progression for their own school. And the value of this report card data is, I think, what you're seeing in school presentations, and they're going in and digging into where do we need to be looking at that. And they can do that grade by grade. They can do that through different genders. They can do that through students who have self-declared Indigenous status. They can look at that from different demographics, and they can dig into where they need to be focusing some of their attention. So I don't want to go through each and every slide with you, but you want to be looking for that shift happening away from orange and through purple into pink as you go through and you look at all of those things. The last piece that I wanted to share with you was we've picked 4 topics on purpose, and the topics that we've picked are critical thinking, problem solving, comprehension in reading, and comprehension in writing. The reading and the writing are base pieces for our literacy scores. Writing is always a difficult thing that students have trouble with. Same with problem solving. And one of the approaches that we try to use in the division is to pick the thing that we need to work on so that we can see that improvement. Critical thinking is one of those things that we hear from businesses and from parents and from people in the community. How come these kids can't just think anymore? What's the deal with that? And they just don't seem to have any capability to do that. So the reason we've picked these 4 are because they are key building blocks, but they are also parts of the curriculum where you would see that progression. Some other curricula like social studies will have independent outcomes where they might do a tougher unit in something, and it isn't quite that linear progression through the curriculum. So when you think about that question of which are the 4 and how come these 4, that was just the reason that I wanted to give on that.
Any questions for Kath? Okay, Kath, so in your professional opinion, how are we doing?
I feel like we're right on track. I've talked before to this group about how one of the things I'm proud of in Sunrise is that pre-pandemic, during pandemic, and post-pandemic, we have always taken a look at the students that are in front of us and said, okay, you're here, we need to go get you and bring you forward. And that has always been a piece that we look at. So when I take a look at these graphs and say, I can look at where you started at in a particular grade and watch you progress through, that's an important piece. I think the layers for me is also pretty important because we have student support services at our school who will look at the school data, and also, as George said, we need to look at each kid one at a time and go and help those students who might have an AEP or an IEP and make sure that they're getting their needs met. There is nothing on any of these reports or from what I'm seeing in schools that would make me panic about where we're at. I feel like we are absolutely bringing our kids out through the other edge of our pandemic.
Any other questions for Kath? So Kath, one more question. So when things are not working, is the process then that our teams are getting together to take a look at what they need to go ahead and do, and then trying different strategies to improve that data or to improve where we are?
That's a great question. So part of what you heard from George's presentation and others before him was, we set this goal and then we realized that we needed to go back to the drawing board and change it. We are not in the place where we set a goal and we stick with it for 3 or 5 years on those sometimes. We're constantly going through what Simon Breakspear would call a sprint or a 6-week sprint, and take a look at what you're doing, and if it's making a difference, keep at it or add the next nugget to it, but if it's not, then you need to get on to the next strategy. So that speed at which we are trying new things, I think has a piece of sort of data and research driven that we're doing differently than what we might have done years ago.
Thanks, Kath. Any questions for Kathy? Trustee Dent?
I have one, and I'm just trying to articulate it in my head. like they look very symmetrical, and so I get that. Let's just pick on grade 3 for this example. So, you know, they start early grade 3, they progress, so they go from grade 3 to hopefully grade 4 at the end. Do we find that year over year maybe our grade 3s are actually coming in starting at grade 3.5, let's say, and ending at 4.5, or are we always starting kind of more or less at the same spot, if that makes sense?
No, they're not starting at the same spot, and I'd be a little alarmed if we were, because as a teacher, you know, every class and every grade has their own dynamic and their own learning style, and sometimes we'll have students who are just not catching on to things as quickly as they need to. Sometimes we'll have classes that have a really big spread in terms of we've got students who are below grade level and some that are above grade level, and they've got a really big spread in the abilities of students in a classroom, and a teacher has got to meet those kids where they are. I don't think that they stay the same year to year. So one of the struggles we always have is how are we measuring kids against themselves and not against the last year grade 3s or the 2 years ago grade 3s. We always want to be trying to track that kid or that student or that learner. How am I doing against the work that I did previous to now? Does that help?
That makes sense to me. Thank you.
Trustee Harris.
So just to carry on with that thought of not all grade 3s every year are at a grade 3, some might be a 2.8 or 3.2. So before COVID, say they were all coming in at a 3. Do we have any data that tells us that after COVID, because of the loss of a couple of years of in-person teaching, that we're still all coming in at a 3? Or are they lower or higher? Or is that even possible to judge that?
So I think we're seeing some things in terms of oral language. We're seeing some things in terms of social skills. We're seeing areas or certain outcomes that we can say, oh yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense that our oral language skills would be difficult because we've been behind masks and so have kids. And that ability to hear and to see sounds that people are making, it would make sense that we're behind in some of those things. It would also make sense that we might be behind in potentially some of the social skills. We take a look at middle year students. If they were in grade 6 when the pandemic started and they're just now starting into grade 9 or heading into grade 9, they've missed out 3 years of testing out their independence. They're not coming into grade 9 with the same social skills that they might have because they missed out making choices about how do I independently think about if I should, you know, leave the playground at lunchtime when I'm not supposed to. Those are things that it got really, really tight and everybody was on a really, really tight timeline to fix. So academically and socially, there are places that make sense. I don't think that at a school level or even a school division level, we're going to be able to tease those threads out. Some of our university professors are working on that meta-analysis where they'll be able to tease those things out and tell us a little bit about it. But our work here is kind of, okay, where are they at? And let's just make sure that we're moving them forward.
A good example of what Kathy was talking about are some anecdotal observations, actually sometimes more at the high schools. I've heard several administrators say earlier on this year that our grade 11s are like our grade 9s. They're just like, there's something, they haven't been in school and they haven't had that time to mature. So it's not like a cognitive deficit, it's just used to being in school that has added a layer of complexity.
And it would be also very interesting to see someone that's been teaching grade 3 for 10 years and then get grade 3 students that are coming in and some of them saying, what did that grade teacher do? You know, a 2 teacher, they don't teach them. You've heard that comment an awful lot. But some of those kids, because of the pandemic and not being in schools, you certainly hear some of those kind of comments. Interesting. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, long service awards retirement. Kath?
Thank you to all the committee people, including Serena Close, who's leaving our building just right now because she's got somewhere else she needs to be. But thanks, Serena, for attending. You're awesome. We have 2 trustees who are part of our committee. We have our union presidents who are part of our committee, and Stacy and Jen and Jamie, who do lots of heavy lifting. So we've set the date June 8th, we've set some of the roles in terms of photography and videos and toasts and roasts, etc. We are looking for some trustees who would like to do a toast to our long service people. We've had 2 people in the past who've done a toast together. It can be one person or a joint effort on that. And we're looking for some trustees who would like to do a toast to our retirees. We have 2 toasts for the evenings. If that is something that interests you, those openings are available to you. More information will come from Jen. She'll send out invites and letters and the like, but mark June 8th in your calendar for a wonderful in-person celebration. What's that? Oh, Stacey's already put it in your calendars. Fantastic. Am I missing anything, Dustin or Dawn?
Just that. Sorry, just you said if you're missing anything. 2 things. One, be it resolved that Trustee Dent is already doing a couple things for that evening, and therefore will not be making the toast. And then second, just the acknowledgement of previous trustees that it's considered a retirement if they've served 2 terms. So that was a new piece of information that came out after our meeting.
So maybe do you want to try and decide that tonight? You need someone to toast the retirees, and you need someone to toast the long service. Are there any people that are dying to do that?
I'll do one.
I'll do one. So I'll do the retirees. You want to do the long service? Considering that I just signed the I just signed the retirees certificates. Boy, do I ever feel old. Because you know what, I've seen those people, and worked with them, and
You don't look old.
yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, you're not giving me that. Okay. Perfect. How about we move on to 8.10, Ecole Parview School. Be it resolved that the board approve in principle the Ecole Parview School grade 11-12 canoe trip to Bird River, June 19 to 21, 2023, subject to superintendent's final approval. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Nichols, seconded by Trustee Reed. Any questions to it? Hearing none, we'll vote. Okay, man. Phew, past 9-0, thank you. Where else are we? We are, we now have our committees. So policy committee, any updates from the policy committee that you'd like to add, Chair Boytson?
No real updates, just mention that we will have some information coming forward, some changes that were made to a couple policies in our bylaw. Normally after a meeting, at this meeting, we would have had a notice of motion, but because we have a number of trustees that will be away on the May 2nd, we thought we'd bring the notice of motion at that time, and then the vote will come at the following meeting. Just another highlight is that, or highlight the electoral ward boundaries that's been sitting on our agenda. We are taking it off and handing it over to somebody else for now. So you won't see that coming up on our minutes anymore, and hopefully never, but let somebody else deal with that. And other than that, we didn't have any changes come forward from any trustees for the bylaw, but the committee itself did come up with a number of changes. So watch for those in our next packages.
You do have minutes that are there that if there's any questions from trustees about the minutes, they're there for your information. And you can ask Trustee Boytson. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Finance Committee, Trustee Rowland, anything that you would like to report from the Finance Committee?
Nothing to report. We're having our committee meeting on Thursday, so next meeting we'll have something to say.
And we know that Trustee Harris is our signing authority for the month of April. Thank you, Trustee Harris. We do not have a Finance Committee check register. Education Foundation, that's you, Jody. Any updates?
Yeah, I've been working with the lawyer, I guess, from Fillmore Riley. They've given me the notice that the individual that I'm working with will be retiring, so I will be working with somebody new. But thankfully, I have been completing the affidavit and the attached documents that they've been looking for They are just reviewing some of them as I'm completing a summary of the financial statements of our foundation. So it's my goal is to hopefully have this all completed before this individual retires. So this way we continue with the new person. At least the heavy lifting has been done, I think.
Any questions for Jody? Okay. 8:17, Kathy, have you uploaded that new reporting document for those 3 trustees that have to go ahead and do that report and just kidding you. Kathy, you're supposed to keep a straight face when I'm doing this. It didn't work that way. Anyways, Capsule, the 3 of you are going, certainly bringing back lots of knowledge. Professional development, we have Trustee Boyson that's going out to CSBA, and then we don't really have anyone right now that's going to CASA. Divisional Financial Summary Report, there isn't one there. Board correspondence, so we sent some information out. You have that. You've seen the information in the Clipper with regard to the superintendent retiring. We have upcoming meetings that are posted here. Press releases. Jody, any questions from the public?
No, nothing's come through.
And Serena left, so we can't even ask her about that. So, so there are no questions from the public. We can adjourn because we do not have to go. We will have nothing else coming out of in camera, so we're pretty at adjournment, right? Correct? All right. So we're at adjournment. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
I don't have too much to say.